Okay, welcome back to Gary's Economics. Thank you for waiting. Today we're going to get you up to speed with everything you missed and talk about how we are going to fix this economic collapse in the rest of 2025. Welcome back. Okay, so first thing to cover is I think to pat ourselves on the back a little bit. I've been away 3 months and I was a little bit worried about taking time off when things are blowing up, but I needn't have been because things have gone absolutely mental with wealth taxes and with inequality since I've been away. Normally when I'm working, I sit here at my kitchen table and I've got a TV there and I run BBC News or Sky News and I have it on mute. And every single time they talk about the economy, there's a little thing at the bottom saying wealth taxes. Are we going to get wealth taxes? Every single time a politician is asked to talk about the economy, the political situation, they are asked, are you going to do wealth taxes? Why are you not doing wealth taxes? Why are you not taxing the rich more? While I was away, we had The Guardian come up with the editorial piece saying we need to have wealth taxes. Just this weekend, we had Lord Kinnock, former leader of the Labour Party, asking why we're not doing wealth taxes. And yesterday we had I'm shooting this on Wednesday. Yesterday we had a YouGov poll coming out saying that 75% of the country, including 62% of Conservative voters, support wealth taxes. Yeah, I don't want to get too egotistical about it, but this is because of us. This is because of us. This is because of me. This is because of you amplifying our message. It's not just us. We have to give like a big shout out to other people push this, Tax Justice UK, especially the patriotic millionaires, Rebecca Gowland at PM UK does great work, Aaron Advani, people like that. But this is us. We've driven this into the narrative. We are a massive, massive part of the conversation now. Politicians have to talk about it all the time. So just a little moment to say, well done. This channel, the political idea of this channel was always that we amplify through ordinary people. We talk to ordinary people in a way that is understandable for ordinary people, and you guys amplify the message. You know, we've never done any advertising, and it's you that grows us. So first things first, like well done. Like we've changed the game on this. You know, we are the new Rupert Murdoch. We are dominating the debate, and we've done it through videos of me sitting here in my kitchen. But it's more because of you guys who watch it. So thank you very much. Let's keep doing it. We're back now, hopefully for the rest of the year. So let's keep pushing this through. All right, so let's catch up a little bit with the broad economic political situation. The reason that wealth taxes have become like relevant is because the economy is shit. And the economy is shit in exactly the way which I said it would be shit before the new government came in. And to be honest, this is relevant even if you're in the US or in other countries. I would like to add the last 3 months I've been like traveling the world and I've been doing events talking about politics and about economics, and the same things are happening everywhere. So this is what I'm about to say. It's not just relevant to the UK or the US. Basically everywhere you have the same situation, which is there's kind of like two flavors of government that you have at the moment, which is either this kind of like boring, centrist, let's just be more efficient, let's just be more practical and sensible and somehow that will fix things. And you have this like kind of increasingly mentalist far right, which is just like going crazy, doing crazy shit, but aggressively blaming immigrants and foreigners. And you know, these two kind of flavors of modern government are like really typified by, at the moment, the Keir Starmer Labour government here in the UK and the Donald Trump Republican government over in the US. And I came out before those guys came in and I said, or it might have been just after, basically said, what you have here is like, is something really interesting because you've got these two kind of opposite flavors of government, which is your like very sort of sensible, practical, traditional centrist Keir Starmer government and this kind of like wild, far right, alt-right, whatever you want to call them, Donald Trump government, that are kind of set up as opposites, but they will both fail on the economy because both of them are failing to recognize the key fundamental economic problem that you have, which is that wealth inequality is growing very, 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 very quickly. The rich and the super rich are growing their wealth very aggressively. That is squeezing out and bankrupting governments, and that is squeezing out and bankrupting the middle class. And because wealth taxes and tax on the super rich are not really on the table, you end up with this situation where you have governments who have collapsed their wealth, given away all of their wealth, are hugely in debt, turning to a middle class who is also quite aggressively losing its wealth and saying, well, you need to pay more. And absolutely refusing to look at this group of people who are just absolutely squeezing everybody else out. And it's going to fail, basically. This is like if you have, you've got a patient on the operating table and they're hemorrhaging blood. The government is hemorrhaging wealth. The middle class is hemorrhaging wealth. And you try to fix it without stopping that hemorrhaging of wealth. The boat has a hole in the bottom, and you're not going to fix it by rowing faster, and you're not going to fix it by blaming immigrants. Until we stop the middle class, the working class, and the governments from having all of their wealth squeezed out of them by the very rich, we will continue to see economic worsening. And this is why I was able to predict that Rishi Sunak would fail economically, that Keir Starmer would fail economically, that Donald Trump would fail economically, despite these three guys, Sunak and Starmer and Trump, being very different politicians. And it's really just for a very simple reason, which is the core of the economic crisis is growing wealth inequality. And none of these politicians, none of these political ideologies are willing to even really talk about inequality. And in fact, in many cases, especially in the case of Donald Trump and the more far-right parties, they're actively cutting taxes on billionaires. So, what you have here is an economy with cancer and a bunch of politicians who don't believe in cancer. So it doesn't matter if it's Starmer on the tin or Trump on the tin, they're going to fail. They're going to fail unless they deal with economic inequality, which is a big problem because they're not addressing it. But it creates this massive, massive political opportunity, which is that what you will see, what we are seeing, what we will continue to see, is continued economic failures of different governments because they refuse to deal with the actual problem. In many cases, I think they don't recognize the importance of inequality as the actual problem. And if you want to understand specifically why it is that governments and politicians and economists don't realize why why inequality is the problem, we do have a video on the channel called Understanding Why Economists Ignore Inequality. We'll put that in the description at the bottom. But basically, these guys will fail again and again. And it puts us in a great position because we can correctly predict that. So I came in before Starmer came in saying that he would win and he would fail really badly on the economy and he would be very unpopular. I said the same thing about Sunak. I said the same thing about Trump. And it also creates this massive demand for something new, right? Because people don't want to live in poverty. People don't want their kids to live in poverty. But it's increasingly clear to ordinary people that is what is happening, that they're being impoverished. And it creates this massive demand for new economic ideas, which I think we here on this YouTube channel are feeling really. And I think that's one of the reasons why this channel has become so big and so popular. And when I was traveling around the world, I realized that it's like popular all over the world really, which is kind of crazy. But that's because these problems are happening everywhere. So there's massive opportunity. I'm back now, we're gonna make videos. We're gonna try to drive into that space. I think there's such a massive gap to explain to people what's happening in the economy. And that gap is only gonna grow as the economy gets worse and worse. But that opportunity, which is there for us to explain why economic worsening is happening, is not just being exploited by us here on this channel, it's also being exploited by the far right. And I think it's interesting to consider what will happen politically and how these two different political ideologies will respond to continuing aggressive economic worsening of living standards. So when you consider these kind of like centrist governments, and I think that includes not just governments like Starmer and Labour and Biden and the Democrats, but also, for example, the Rishi Sunak Conservative government was more or less a kind of boring centrist government economically. When they fail on the economy, they are really quite fucked, to be honest, because when your position is this kind of like radical centrism and your offer is just we're going to be really sensible, when you try to be really sensible and the economy fails, you basically don't have anywhere to move. These guys continually find themselves in the same situation, which is they make promises, they enter government, they realize that the government's given all of its wealth away, they turn to the middle class who have also not had their wealth protected, and then they just basically say, we're fucked, we're going to just basically shut the welfare state down. And then that makes them very unpopular. These centrists have not really got anywhere to go. And that is a problem. Because the new right, the far right, whatever you want to call them, they do have somewhere to go, which is, it's really, really obvious what these guys are going to do. When they fail on the economy, and Donald Trump will fail on the economy if he's judged by broad living standards, because he's not dealing with the growing inequality, they have people to blame, right? They say we were stopped by the centrists, we were stopped by the academics, the Supreme Court, the media, these negative elements within our society. They didn't allow us to be aggressive enough on immigration and foreigners, and then you shift further to the right, and that you have that space to move into. And you really see that, like here in this country, you know, we had obviously the Cameron Osborne government, who were not aggressively far right, especially on social issues. They failed on the economy, and they were replaced by Boris Johnson, who was further to the right on these social issues. And then he again failed on the economy, and he was replaced, well, it looks like he will be replaced by Nigel Farage, who was further to the right on these social issues. And basically, this will keep happening. You will see this flip-flap, which is the centre fails on the economy because they fail to deal with inequality. They're replaced by someone on the right. They fail because they fail to deal with growing inequality in the economy. And they're replaced either by someone in the centre or somebody further right. Because you need, when you can see that the status quo is failing, you always need to be able to sell yourself politically as something new. And I think unless really the centre or something on the left is able to come up and actually deal with this rapidly growing inequality, which is crushing the middle class and crushing governments, it is inevitable that we will see a progression of further and further right governments. And I'm not saying that Farage or Trump are fascists. If you want to say that, that's up to you. If we don't fix the economic problem, we will inevitably get further and further and further to the right governments that are more and more extreme. Because it's the only way that politicians can sell themselves as new and sell themselves as believably being able to fix the economic problem. So at this point, I would like to send a message out to the Labour Party. Look, I don't hate you. I don't know what you guys feel about me. I don't want this country to go to shit. And I don't want this country to descend into like in extreme fascism. And I'm not saying that's what Farage is, but I know that that's where we will go if we don't fix this economic problem. You guys won an election 1 year ago. You've got 4 years until the next election. Listen, I don't know what you think about me. I've got a very long track record of good predicting. I get paid millions of pounds by banks to tell them this stuff. I'm telling this to you for free. If you do not deal with this rapidly growing inequality of wealth, the economy will collapse and you guys will get absolutely smashed at the next election. But more importantly than that, this country will collapse into desperate, desperate poverty. I don't want that to happen, and I'm hoping that you don't want that to happen. This week, I've sent a few emails out to guys in Labour. I've tried to set up a few meetings so we can go and speak to them to see if they're interested in fixing this problem. I've got to be honest, I'm not super confident that the guys I've spoken to are going to be able or willing to seriously think about fixing this problem. If there's anyone out there, one MP in the Labour Party, who doesn't want the country to go to shit, then fucking send me an email, all right? Because at the end of the day, I'm a YouTuber. This channel is probably going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Coming up to the next election, I'm going to try and make it so you fucking need us. But more importantly, I don't want the country to collapse. If there's one single MP out there in Labour that doesn't want the country to collapse, get in touch. Because the truth of the matter is, if Labour doesn't deal with this, which it looks like they won't, the economy will get worse and worse and worse and worse. Labour will get more and more and more and more unpopular. Starmer will get more and more unpopular. Reeves will get more and more unpopular. They will end up in a position where they will probably be forced to do a massive rebrand and probably change leadership before the next election. And I want that new leader, and it doesn't have to be a new leader, by the way. Listen, Starmer, if you're out there, I'll be happy to work with you, you know. It's my country too, you know. I don't want it to go to shit, and I hope you don't. Whoever is in charge of the Labour Party going to the next election, if we do not have an offer on the table that is serious about reducing inequality, then it will be Farage, it will be reform, and I worry about what that means. So as this channel grows and grows, we become more and more politically powerful. After this video, we'll be doing a lot more economics explainers. We're going to do one on housing, why housing is expensive next week. But we do have to sort of recognise what we are. I don't do this channel just because I like talking about the economy. I do it because I don't want the economy to collapse. And for whatever you or I might think, because of the political system we have in this country, I don't see any realistic way of fixing the economy without going through Labour. And that doesn't mean I won't talk to the Greens or anyone else or the Liberal Democrats or even Conservatives or Reform. But I think our best chance is to try to get Labour to not be so aggressively shit. So I'm here if you want to talk to me. Okay, so on that message, on a message to Labour, I want to send out a few more messages to people. Just here at the beginning of what I'm going to call the summer-autumn 2025 season of Gary's Economics. The first thing to say is, when I started this channel doing videos in my mate Simran's garden, I never thought that it would really come to anything, and I didn't think we really had much chance of winning, but I thought it was important to do, and Simran always thought we had a good chance. I think we might win this. The speed of the growth is absolutely incredible. And we've already had our big press campaigns with the book last year and this year, and maybe it's going to struggle without those press campaigns. We've got some cool stuff, some TV stuff lined up for this year. It might come out early next year, which I'm hoping will bring more attention. But I think we've got a massive chance. I think it should be obvious that social media is becoming and is going to become more and more powerful in the realm of mainstream politics. And the traditional political parties and also a lot of the traditional media have been super, super slow to move on that. I heard that the other day that Nigel Farage has more TikTok followers than all of the rest of the other 649 MPs put together. Politics and media has been slow to adapt to the demand for politics and economics on social media. And we're here. We must be one of the biggest politics, economics, social media platforms in Europe. We're growing super quickly. We're already dominating the debate. I think we can win. I think we've got a chance. So stick it out, stick in, keep following. I'm hoping to keep making videos as good this season as they were last season. But I wanted to send a message to all my international viewers, because in the last 3 months, I've been all over the world. I was in Japan, Korea, Italy, Portugal, Sweden, and Norway. And I did events in almost all of those countries. Everybody's got the same problems. I know we're mainly watched in the UK and the US, but the truth is, we are getting closer and closer to actually getting some kind of implementation of a fairer tax system here in the UK, not just because of this channel, but because of the work of what we do here and other great campaigners here in the UK. We are not the center of the world anymore. This is going to be very, very difficult to fix just here, just in the UK. It's going to be much, much easier if we have other countries willing to help us protect ourselves from billionaires all over the world. So, I'd like to reach out to all of the people who watch in other countries. Thank you very much for your support. Please try and build up this message in the countries that you're in. It's a very simple message. The reason for falling living standards is growing wealth inequality. Government and the middle class are being squeezed out. That inequality is continuing to grow rapidly. If you don't do anything about it, then living standards and the economy will continue to collapse. You need to understand that in your country as well as in my country. If we build this message up, we can stop it. The last time we significantly reduced inequality in the Western world, it wasn't done just here in the UK. It was done across Europe, including the US and including places like Japan. We did it together, and I think we can do it together again. If you're interested in seeing some of my interviews across the world, I think there's one of my interviews in Portugal, one of my interviews in Italy, and one of my interviews in Japan, including a section of me speaking Japanese, are all up. I'll put them up in the comments. I wanted to send a message out to people that are voting or considering voting for the far-right parties. Reform, Donald Trump, whatever, Chega in Portugal, they're all over the place. You know who they are. You've got one in your country. Look, I know I get branded as a communist and shit like that. I don't hate you if you're trying to vote for these people, if you're considering voting for these people. Like, I know the message is going out there that the reason you're poor is immigrants, the reason you're poor is foreigners. I know that message goes out again and again and again and again. And I know that ordinary people are struggling and they're worried about the future and their financial position and the financial positions of the kids and their grandkids. And I'm worried as well. I don't come from a rich background. I know what life is like for ordinary people. And I know it's a lot of ordinary poor people that are voting for these guys. Look, I don't hate you. I do this for you. I don't need to do this. I'm financially secure. And if you want lower immigration, you have every right to ask for that. But before you consider voting for far-right parties, I want you to always ask yourself 2 questions. Who funds these guys? And what are they going to do to billionaire taxes? Because in almost every case, you will find that these guys are funded by billionaires and are trying to cut billionaire taxes. These billionaires are the guys who are going to own the houses that your kids need. They are the guys that are taking the wealth that your government used to have. They are the guys that are bankrupting your countries and your welfare state. Listen, I'm not here to talk about immigration. I'm not an immigration economist. I'm an inequality economist. And you can have whatever level of immigration that you like, seriously. But please don't vote for billionaires who are going to bankrupt you. Okay, I wanted to send out 2 more short messages. I wanted to send one to the working class that don't trust the middle class. Listen, I come from a working class background. And, you know, now I like move in some fancy circles sometimes when I have to. And sometimes I don't trust them either. I know they can be kind of dickheads and they can sometimes be quite annoying. You're not going to get out of this without their support. There's going to be a lot of the media trying to make you hate people a bit richer than you, a bit posher than you. And I know that you are the guys who are on the front line and you are the guys who are getting hurt. If the working class and the middle class can't stand together, then the rich and the super rich will win. So stay cool here, but don't worry, I see you. And to the middle class that don't trust the working class, listen, you know, I know you guys might not be on the sharp end of it now, but once the rich have taken all the wealth of the government and all the wealth of the poor, whose wealth do you think they're going to take next? You know, don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Okay, finally, just before I end, I wanted to send a message to the rich and the super rich. Because, you know, as this channel has grown and as my message has grown and as this wealth tax stuff has grown, there has been inevitably a lot of pushback. And I know that a lot of that pushback comes from rich and super rich people or is ultimately funded by rich and super rich people. And I know why you do that, because you don't want to pay higher taxes. I understand. I don't want to pay higher taxes either. I don't like it. If you are rich or if you are super rich, you have a nice life, right? You know, I've seen how you guys live and I know how you live, right? It's nice. You know, you guys get a lot of luxury and it's cool. By pushing this further and further and further and taking more and more and more, you are aggressively destabilizing the economies and political systems of the countries which you live in and which give you extreme luxury. What the fuck are you doing? It's enough. It's enough. And, you know, we have these stories in history. I don't know how true they are. That, you know, when the British elites got so rich, they eventually decided to do things like more philanthropy and, you know, help set up the welfare state and help protect the poor. And for that reason, you know, they were able to protect the political stability of the countries they lived in. Whereas the French elites, they didn't give anything back. They did all their let them eat cake shit and they get their heads chopped off. Look, I ain't trying to cut nobody's heads off. You've got enough. If you keep pushing, you will destabilize the countries that give you these enormous amounts of wealth. Look at what happened in history. Look at what happened in the 20th century. I'm not trying to redistribute wealth away from the rich. I am trying to stop the redistribution that is bankrupting ordinary people. Listen, I'm out here with my white flag up. I would accept a peace treaty. Let's stop it now. If you keep pushing under this system where you don't pay tax and the poor pay tax and you increasingly take everything and bankrupt everybody else, you will destroy the political stabilities of this country. So stop funding dickheads to argue with me on the news. Okay, that's it. That's the end of this week's video. Not a lot of economics in this week's video, but we're going to come back with the same kind of stuff that we've always done. Next week, I want to do a video on why housing is so expensive, which I think is one we haven't covered for ages. It's really, really important. My plan this year is to run through till the end of the year. I've got like some TV shit I'm working on as well. It's keeping me busy. But if my mental health holds up and I don't get assassinated by the Financial Times, we'll be back running these videos till the end of the year. Shit's going to be hard. Stay cool. Be there for each other. What I would like you to do is just stick to the message. One simple, clear economic message. The reason for growing poverty, the reason for falling living standards is growing wealth inequality. That is worsening rapidly. If we don't deal with it, things get worse. We can deal with it. It's possible. Tax the rich more. Tax wealth, not work. Welcome back. Hope you're enjoying summer. Thank you.